Welcome to Professor Game Podcast, where we interview successful practitioners of games, gamification, and game thinking who brings the best of their experiences to get ideas, insights, and inspiration that help us in the process of getting the students to learn what we teach. And I'm Rob Alvarez. I teach and work at IE Business School in Madrid, where we create interactive and engaging learning materials. Want to know more? Go to professorgame.com/subscribe, start on our email list, and ask me anything. Hey Engagers, so this is Rob here. I'm just making a quick reference before the start of the episode. This is a different special episode. This is the talk that I gave at Serious Play 2019 in Orlando. Just to let you know, this is where this was delivered. Of course, the sound will be just like in Dan Salmanovich's episode. It will be a bit different because it was recorded live. But it will have the special enhancement as well that you will be able to see pictures. You will see the full slideshow within the show notes. So you can go if you want to see all of these things. You'll be having reference links as well, probably videos. So if you want to see all of that jazz, please go to professorgame.com, type in the search bar, type Serious Play 2019, and this episode will pop up. Sue's episode will pop up, and just choose the one that says the talk, and there you'll be listening to this. You'll be seeing all of the references if you want to see them there. So again, this is my talk at Serious Play 2019. Just go ahead and enjoy yourself. Gamification for engagement. And we're going to have a different perspective here. It's always about the long term and how we keep people engaged in the long run. Today I'm going to be also talking about not only the long run, but the short run. And we're going to be diving deep into that. So the first thing is, we usually, probably many of you are into universities, into training, and we're thinking about, the whole journey. We're starting here and we want to get to graduation, it could be for students. Or we want to get to lifelong learning, probably for the professional workforce. And that's good. We have to think about that. That's important because we have a journey right here and we want to take them to whatever point B means. For us, for me, that's point B. If you like these kind of paradises, great, so you keep it in mind. If you don't, imagine that you like it. That this is a great place to be at, right? So again, we're going to be talking about the perspective of from where we are, we have to take a journey, we have to take this path to get to another place. And again, this path can be very long. The journey can take weeks, months, years, depends on what that means for each and every one of you. So you're probably asking yourself, who I am? Why am I here? Why am I on this side and not sitting right next to you, which I'll be in a few minutes as well. I'm many things. I'm married, I live in Madrid. There's many things I could say about myself. That's me, by the way, in case you were wondering from the picture. But I'm many things. I wear several hats. The first hat that I wear, as we were chatting a few minutes ago, is the hat of IE University. At IE University, I do several things as well. One of them is that I'm an adjunct professor of gamification on one side and of operations on the other. So a very engineering background because I'm an engineer is my background. So I do those two things. I teach for the business school and I teach for the rest of the university as well. I teach gamification for these students. Those are my two hats as an adjunct professor. And then the other hat is as a staff member because I work full-time as a staff member in IE University in a department we call IE Publishing. When you think of that, you probably think about books. Kind of, not really. What we do is actually cases and tutorials, but we have a spin on that. We have them as an interactive version. Our cases, our tutorials, we have simulations and so on. So we are the ones who create interactive material for the whole university. Initially for the business school and now for the whole university. Those are the things that we do there. Those materials, we started using them just for us. The IP, we hugged it and kept it close to our chests. But then we decided, why not also make it available for other places? It is a business school. It is privately held, so we sell it. But, it's easier to get licenses for these things than to start them from scratch, usually. Especially if you already have one. If this type of material already exists, thinking of creating it once and again, if this one works for you, it doesn't make sense economically. So we realized that was a good thing. We put it available, and that's one of the things that I'm doing there. I'm an associate director of the Department of IE Publishing and High Impact Online Programs because we do a lot of online. IE University is especially known for its online programs. We started in 2001 with an MBA, and it's been long running. It's, the standards are very high and it works very well. So those are the two things I'm doing there. And the other thing I'm doing is I have a podcast. I am the person behind Professor Game. It's a podcast where I interview people from serious games, gamification, game thinking, all these types of things that are practitioners, people who are being successful at using these things, serious games, gamification, for other things, not only entertainment, but for other things, for education, for marketing, for corporate training, for whatever it could be. So that's the center of the podcast. It's very, very focused on interviews. So 99% of the episodes are interviews. And that's my other hat. So those are the two things that I get together. I went from one to the other. This is my, not really a side job, it's more of a hobby right now. But I enjoy it very, very, very much. And that's one of the reasons I got invited here. So we were talking about the whole engagement in the long run and in the short run. And as you can see, I don't know if you identify what game that is. Can somebody know what game that could be from?
Is that Warhammer?
Yes. So that's, well, Warhammer, or I identified it as World of Warcraft when I found it online. That could be the guy, the dead people who are going around. But maybe it could be Warhammer. Maybe you're right. Maybe the internet was wrong, and that happens often. So some games can be very, very, very successful in the long run. And I use the Warcraft example because it's been going on for quite a while, and there's a very large community of people going on and playing that game over and over again and getting better, and they're competing with each other. And it's been going on for years and years. I mean, I remember it from quite a few years ago, and it's been going on. So we could argue that in the long run, this game has been super successful. Super successful. Another game that has probably been going on for a while, you've probably seen it somewhere, is chess. People play chess. People who are passionate about chess can play years of chess and get better and better and master the skill and get better every day and practice over again and do it some more and do it some more. And that's great because they're mastering the skill and they're doing the whole skill gaining for something like chess because they enjoy it very much. Again, we're talking about entertainment still, because we're drawing from experience, serious games, gamification, we're drawing from the experience of the entertainment industry and we're using it for something else, right? So again, chess is another example, completely different from a digital game, massive multiplayer online RPG as World of Warcraft, and we have chess, which has been going on for thousands of years, right? Another example, a lot more recent and probably more relatable to some millennials, is Fortnite. It hasn't been going on quite as much as World of Warcraft, but it seems like it's going to be going on for a long while. And I would argue that year and a half or 2 years it's been going on, it's a pretty successful long run. I mean, some careers are 3-4 years, that would be half a career at best, right? So I would argue that it's a pretty successful game for the short run. Tic Tac Toe. Anybody here played Tic Tac Toe before? Yeah? Most of us. Who still plays, we have a game night tonight and we're going to play Tic Tac Toe. Who does that still? One. Okay, so the numbers are dropping with Tic Tac Toe. What happens with Tic Tac Toe? I would argue Tic Tac Toe is very successful. Not necessarily in the long run. All right? What usually happens, again, and this depends on personality and what you like and what you don't, but what usually happens is that you master the game, you know how to win, or at least how to avoid the other player from winning, and after that, there's not much more to take out of the game. But it's fine. I mean, it went for its purpose. You wanted to play a quick game. Maybe when you were a kid or with your kids, you teach them the game. You play for a while. It's very, very entertaining until you figure it out. When you completely figure it out, most people tend to drop out until you teach somebody else how to play it. But that's fine. It's a very, very successful game. Almost everybody in the room said, you've played Tic Tac Toe. So that makes it a very, very successful, entertaining game. So it's fine. We can play Tic Tac Toe. It's fine. We play it. But it's not in the short run and in the long run. So the question would be, what does the long run mean? How long is the long run? And that depends. What would you argue is the long run? 4 years of a career, 1 year of masters, 20 years when you're working in the corporate setting from getting to the promotion you're looking for, being the vice president or whatever. What's a long run? It depends. It depends very much on the context, on what's going on, what are you looking for, but the long run can mean many things. What we do know is that a game like Tic Tac Toe is certainly probably short run, because in less than a week you're probably already done with understanding how the whole game works. And it was very successful in that space, right? So again, we get back to the journey. We were talking about going through this path. We're going from point A to point B, right? So look something like this. Again, let's imagine that that's not the place that you want to be. You don't want to just sit there and watch the views from that place, but you actually want to go to the destination. what happens? Many, many, many times it's enough to think about the place where you want to get to. And if it's a 5-minute walk, it's very easy to say, well, I'm going to walk that to get here. Again, imagine that's a paradise that you're seeing right there. If that's a paradise, you have to walk 5 minutes? Easy peasy. However, what happens if the path is a bit longer? Maybe it's not 5 minutes, but 1 hour of walking under the sun. What happens if it's 2 days, 3 days, a week, a month, walking under the sun with the sand? Maybe the road is a bit more complicated than we were expecting initially, and we need that strength, that motivation, that engagement to take the next step and walk for the next 5 minutes and say, yeah, I want to get here, but just getting there is not going to happen right now in 5 minutes, in 10 minutes. It's going to happen maybe in a few days. And just remembering the destination, like graduation for some students, it doesn't get you through the class you're sitting in and you're maybe falling asleep right now, all right? So that's one of the things that we want to talk about today. And what I want to talk about is precisely some of the solutions that we have come up with to solve this problem that we've seen. The problem being that you want to get from point A to point B. That could be the long run, and it has a lot of engagement plan. There's a lot of planning going on. We think about our students, we think about their journey, we think about all the things that they do, that they're able to do. But of course, what happens in every day? What happens in every class that they have? It's one thing to say, oh, I'm going to graduate from computer science and I'm going to be, I'm going to work at Google and I'm going to do this and that. But I'm in first year and I have to go through this class, which I'm actually hating right now. How do we get them to not hate that class? How do we get them to be engaged with that class and learn what they need to learn so that they get to be the computer science major and go possibly to Google, which is their dream? How do we bridge that space right there? There's a lot of planning going on, but again, it could even get down to, and that's what we do, that's the way we approach the creation of our interactive materials, is for that session that they're going on right there. The idea is that in that session, they are engaged enough for them to take that next step and say, okay, I can do this, I can just engage with this, I can learn a bit from this, I can get to these learning objectives from this class, and I can move on. Next class, we'll see. We'll see what happens. We'll see what the other professor does. We'll see what the other session is about. We'll see what the other subject is about. That's exactly the steps that we're looking for taking, and that's the experience the main experience that we have is creating materials for that session. The session that you're going to say, well, my learning objective is to get students to understand that there are different alternatives to the app business models. So we have a mobile app, and what are the different business models? I have to consider them. It's not just about freemium. That's a learning objective. That's one of the things that you want to get. And that's maybe one, maybe two classes, 2 sessions. But that's exactly what you need. You need to get from point A to point B. And it's a small space. You want to get them to graduation, but before, you need them to take this step and pass this assignment, this test, this subject. Right? So I wanted to show you. Now I'm going to be showing a few examples. This is the first one I'd like to show. It's, of course, if it's an app and you can't refuse it, the good thing is that you have to do it, right? So this app is about a concept that was created by one of our professors, Guillermo de Aro. It's about the relationship between the way the Mafia is organized and the businesses. So what can we learn from the organization of the Mafia, which has many organizational cues that we can take for businesses? How can we use those in a business? So the concept is called Mafia Business School, and he created an app together with a company to talk about this concept and to see how people can interlink these things. What we did is we said, well, okay, that sounds like a very interesting success case. Let's make a case out of that and see what are the steps that you went through. What are the things that you have to consider when creating an app that could be Mafia Business School or anything else? What are the considerations that you need to keep in mind when you're thinking about these things? So it's in Spanish because we initially created it in Spanish, but the concepts and the looks are pretty similar. As you can see, it's almost a comic book. The comic book is interactive, so there are many elements in which you can see. We will see probably videos, we will see small exercises, we will see concepts coming up and down. There are many things that are clickable here. We can see how the app markets. This is the other co-author, Guillermo Velasco. He's talking about how the app markets work, what are the economic considerations that they have to take. So it's going on in different things going on. It's not the same, and I have nothing against written media, which is great, and we still use it very much. But if you switch it back and forth between just written media and having something that they have to interact with, they have to touch around and see what's going on, what's the next thing, then see a video, then write some exercise down, it keeps our students very much more engaged with their learning, which is exactly what we're looking for, right? So again, going through here you can see what's the free, these are all the concepts that they have to go through to understand the whole app, so you can see each of them. Here are some examples of what they do. And now it's going to jump directly to the end, because at the end what we have is a mini simulation. Because again, you remember I said at the start, we want them to understand what are the different business models and the considerations that those business models have for apps, mobile apps. So again, here the professor is explaining how the simulation works. It's again very, very simple. It has, as you can see over here, has very few things that you have to consider. That you can click here and go from paid download to freemium app to a freemium advertising as well. There's many ways, but we put it down into 3. So they understand, again, this simulation is not perfect. This is a simulation that this company uses. It's not perfect, but that's what they use when they're considering what is the business model that they're going to use, how much are they going to invest in marketing, how much do they want the app to cost, how much do they think it's going to be downloaded. They have to consider all these things. And what we want is for them to get into that mindset of thinking, okay, so I have to do all of these considerations before I actually launch my app into the market. I have to think about these things. Doesn't mean I'm going to be right or wrong, but I at least have to consider them. And that's exactly a small, that thing I talked about, short, small learning objectives. That's a learning objective. That's not going to be, it's not a whole subject around mobile apps. It's the information systems. It's a very broad subject. These are just a small, maybe 1 or 2 sessions. Right? So again, not all hope is lost. When you're going through these things and you say, how am I going to get this super difficult concept through? There are many, many tools that are either available or they can be created. All right? So again, not all hope is lost. There are things that can be done because it's not only about thinking about the whole engagement throughout the career of a student, of somebody in corporate, somebody that, whatever it is that you're working with, it's not only about that huge journey that you're taking them through. You also have to think about those small steps. Because if you just plan out the journey and give them a very interesting goal, remember the beach, beautiful goal, you want to get there, and all you have to do is this, walk here. Yeah, but at some point, maybe your feet are sore, and you want to stop, you want to quit, you want to call a helicopter and bring you back home, right? So, what we're going to do now, very, very quickly, is we're going to actually play. We're going to experience one of these ourselves. Slightly different way, because this is a presentation mode, but the idea is that we're going to be able to play this making money on oil simulation. So, the idea of this simulation is it's used in economic environment subject at the business school, created by with Professor Gail Lard. She's an economics professor. She has created a lot of materials with us. And this one, what you have to do is, we're going to have some news. Something happens in the news, and we're going to decide if we sell our futures of oil, if we purchase futures of oil, or if we put our money just in a bank account. So here I went on to discuss how the simulation itself happens, to explain how do the things go, do an actual example of the simulation, but of course that doesn't make as much sense live as it does on a podcast. So I'm clipping this part a little bit just for you to save you a few minutes that you would have probably not enjoyed as much as hopefully the rest of the talk. So I'll leave you here with the rest. It's going to connect directly into the learning and how does this work from a learning perspective. The idea here is that we group them together, 5 or 6 students per group. They discuss for 2 minutes and they say, oh, we're going to buy, and they put $2 million in the buy. Oh, we're going to sell, we put $2 million here. That's the idea. They're engaged with that. And that concept of supply and demand, which is very, very, very high concept, a bit far away from our daily life. You bring it to something which is nearer to you, that you can see in the news, that you can see happening in everyday life, and you understand it probably a little bit better. They do 5, 10, 8 turns depending on the class. They also discuss, because just as now I said, well, what happened here is this and that, there's somebody who's actually an expert in economics, a professor in economics, explaining it 20 times better than I ever could. All right? So that's the idea. These are the materials that we're creating, just like this one, are not looking to substitute in any way our professors or faculty or instructors, the trainers in the industry which we work with as well. They're actually looking to enhance what they're capable of delivering. This is very, very important for our vision. We have a lot of online programs, but our online programs are with faculty there. They are present, they have video conferences, they have forums, they have a lot of interaction with students, so that we bring the best from the face-to-face world, mostly as much as we can, into the online world, with the enhancements that the online world has as well. Because this kind of thing is a lot more difficult to do in paper writing kind of situation, right? Again, this kind of simulation, in particular, we use it both in face-to-face, as we are now, and in online settings. We have the students logging in through a video conference, the professor is explaining these things, gives a timer, and everybody has to decide what to do on their own, on their groups, and then they have to vote, and they go on to the next turn and see what happens. So that's the idea of this simulation. The other one that we saw before as well, it's easy because it's homework. You just take it home, do it by yourself, and then you discuss it in class. It's the case study methodology, that one in particular. We're now going to watch the news again. This is another example, all right? So again, I took you from the technology world into the economic world, and this one is in the supply operations and supply chain world. This one is called the supply chain simulation. The idea is that we'll see a full supply. Oh, by the way, do you have any questions? Is there anything that's on your mind as we're talking right now? No?
I have one.
Yes, please.
So the one thing you mentioned in terms of like the long-term goal connected to like the short-term, I guess you were talking about that now, but like how do you help students to perceive that short little, is going to lead to that long-term?
Okay, so in general, students are seeing that long-term. Again, they're seeing that beach. They're saying, graduation day, it's coming, or it's not coming yet, it's far away. I can see other students graduating, and that's motivation. However, what we look for is to get them to take that next step. It doesn't necessarily have to be directly connected to the rest of the journey, very obviously. We want them to take that next step and say, well, now I know a bit more about what app markets look like and what does the supply and demand be used for. Because I'm going to use it in another subject, in this subject, where it's a requirement for graduation, basically. Because as we know, some things are a requirement and they have to do it. So basically, that's what we're getting them through. They know that they have the graduation over there. They know that they have to go through all these classes, but we want to make sure that they actually want to go to these classes, that they actually want to learn these things. It's not just about the destination, which is very, very important. It's about getting that next step and the next step and the next step, right? Great question, thank you. So again, this is from the operations and supply chain world. This is called a supply chain simulation. The idea here is that there is a supply chain. So you have the factory, you have the distributor, the wholesaler, and the retailer. Simplified, there's very, very few decisions that we have to make, actually just one. We have to decide how much we're going to order from the next person in the supply chain. In this case, we're the distributor, and we say, okay, I am the distributor, I get a demand, I get 4. Whatever that 4 means. I get 4, you're demanding 4, I'm sending them 4. What do I ask for? Should I ask for 4, for 3, for 6, for 20? How does it work? So the trick, so to speak, here is that they have some delays, both in delivering their orders and in getting their orders delivered to them. So there's this small mail here that gets it to the other one. It takes a turn or 2, depending on the configuration, and then from that order to get to you, it takes at least 2 turns. That small delay that you get there has what we call the bullwhip effect. And it's very, very complicated usually to explain how that works until you experience it.
In this part of the talk, I explain how this simulation works and some of the learning objectives within it. The thing is that if you understand this beforehand and you're a student and you'll be experiencing this simulation in the future, your experience won't be as great as if you didn't really know all of this information. So again, we're going to do a small skip and I'm going to jump into the next example that I give in the talk. But don't worry, there is enough content for you to get a lot of inspiration. And of course, you can always refer to the webpage where in professorgame.com, you can go and find Series Play 2019, and you'll find both Sue's episode and you'll find this episode where you have references, you'll have pictures, you'll have the slides, you'll have a lot of more of information as well if you want to find it there. So again, moving on to the next example in the talk.
Another example. I'm gonna bore you with examples right now. All right. So the idea is, and if you're okay with that, and if you allow me, I'll be showing you some exact examples of the kinds of things that we do. So that's one of that I did. This one is about design thinking, prototyping, and innovation in general. So the idea here is that we put these students, when they come into the class, we put them in a setting, and the setting is, well, let's actually get into that setting ourselves. We're traveling somewhere with our team.
Hey, you alright? Let me get a closer look. Whew, that's a pretty deep cut. A bit of swelling, but you'll live. Hey, where the hell are we? What are we gonna do? How are we gonna get out of here? Right, you're right. We gotta stay calm, level-headed. There seem to be quite a few survivors, so we can group together and find a way off this damn island. Hey, what's that? A map. Hey, that could be useful. Let's see what we've got. Water, a flashlight, and some gloves. That might come in handy. All right, I think we should get started. Let's group up and get to work.
He got it together fast. He got himself together, right? So this guy who started there, he's going to be our companion throughout this journey. The idea is he's going to be with us until he's, full of beard, and we've been there for weeks, and his clothes are ragged and so on. The idea here is that they're in this island, and they have to group together. They're working in teams. They're deciding what things they're going to do, and how they're going to do these prototypes to be able to get this damn island, as the guy said, right? So the idea is to escape the island because they're stranded, basically. You put them in a very extreme situation in which they have to get out of. So that's a general idea of this simulation. They do design thinking, they do prototyping, they do teamwork. This is one of the few of our activities that actually takes more than 1.5 to 3 hours. This could take a full day. This could be a full day workshop, actually. You gather the students in a classroom, probably not as this one because the tables are a bit fixed, in which they can actually gather in teams and move around. They can do a bit more. It's a bit more of an active kind of workshop. And they're able to do all of these things. And again, we put them into this environment. We put them into this game or this gamified environment in which they are into this story and they get very excited about it because they really get into this kind of thing. And sometimes it's easy to forget because it seems it's just a very simple story in a way. It's easy to forget how much a story can go for our learners, how much they can really get into the story. And of course, it's not just about having the story, it's about being committed to that story. I was recently talking, I don't know if you've heard of Michael Matera. I was talking to him in an interview, and one of the things that he said was, one of the things that you have, when the engagement, you go in with all that energy and maybe it starts dropping, what you could do, and it would be easy, is to drop your energy together with your class. What the class needs from you is for you to go to actually a peak of energy and show them that this is actually the way that it's going to work. You're being committed to that storyline that's happening there. If they say, oh yeah, the activity, oh yeah, you mean the island that we're in right now. Getting them back into that virtual reality in which we're placing them, it's your commitment as a faculty, as a trainer, to get them back into that story. And it works. I mean, many of the students are actually expecting you to raise the stakes and be the one who puts them there in that situation. And it works in that sense. It works very much. Sometimes they're like, oh, yeah, no, it could be, these are university students, but it could be younger students and saying, oh, this guy's just joking around and so on. When they see your commitment, it makes a difference, right? So, here it goes through things like the critical uncertainties, natural disasters, new technologies, consumer tastes, and so on. There's a lot of frameworks, there's a lot of theory behind all of these things. Each and every one of these materials has a faculty or several faculty behind it, backing up the theoretical concepts, the whole way it's being explained. Of course, there could be the area director as well, seeing how this is working, if it fits together with the program, with the syllabus, and so on. There's a lot of theory and a lot of things and a lot of research going on behind, and this is actually the results. And just very quickly, it's going to be amazing. This is the making of something like this.
Hey, where the hell are we? What are we going to do?
That's the office.
we've got something really great, I gotta say. God, I hope this works. Anyway, I'll see you later.
Okay, so that was the making of. And why did I show that? I have 10 minutes left, okay? Why did I show that? I want to make sure that you see that there's a lot of work that could go behind these. Some are simpler, some are more difficult. This was done in our studio. We have that which you saw there, the green screen there is our studio. We have it within the office. The other slide that you saw is our office. That was recorded the other way around it. This guy came with a crazy beard, coming all over the place, and they started cutting his beard to make him look. So at the end of the simulation, it started recording there, and then at the end he was recently shaven, and he came literally running through the stairs to arrive like, that was part of the whole thing. That guy's an actor in particular. We actually hire actors every now and then for these kinds of things. There could be a lot of work involved, and there's a lot of people involved in these kinds of things. We have our local team, we have people that we hire for specific things here. Like most of the people that you saw there do not work in the office. Just the guy was dancing around. He's the arts director of our department. Except for him and maybe one or two more, all the rest of that crew is actually people we hire just for specific things, right? There's a lot of work going on. There's a lot of interesting things that could be going on. And again, that's a very high-level simulation. It's a very high level of things and a high level of production. Some things are a lot simpler. We were talking at the start, and we talked about Tic Tac Toe, and we talked about chess. Chess is not a massive production. It just requires a lot of thinking. It requires us to do the thing that we do best, thinking and creating things. So sometimes it could be a very high-end situation like this one. This was recorded in months and months. Some of our simulations can take years to be created. And it's for a single class, maybe two classes. And some things can be done in 2, 3, 4 months. If you do a paper prototype of some things, sometimes that's exactly what you need. Sometimes it's a card game. Sometimes it's a board game. There's many things, many solutions that can come from your creativity. And what I want you to take the opportunity today as well to take away with you is using all these different examples that I'm showing you here in the digital world, because that's what we're doing right now, and to take them and think about the different things that you could do with your own thinking. And I'm going to give you an invitation as well to stay in touch if you wish. In my podcast, I interview people who talk about the kinds of things that I do and the kinds of things that all other people are doing all over the place. There's one person I talked to recently, Ann Coppens. She just won an award because of her cyber attack game. And the last thing that you would think is that it's actually a board game. So it's a cyber attack going on, and she did it through a board game with cards. It's fantastic. It actually gets the message right through. The idea is that employees understand the importance of considering cybersecurity within all your frameworks and all the things that you have to consider when you're working in an everyday job, right? So exactly that small learning objective, she got it through a board game. Got awarded. It was a fantastic game. So again, high end, some of the things we do are high end, medium end, and low fidelity, so to speak, can be a board game. It can be a card game. There's many activities that you could actually do that can be considered games. And we could have a whole conversation of what games are or are not, but that's not today's topic. Today's topic is about, again, taking that next step, which is what we do, and that's something that you can actually do. You can either, if you're in a business school or similar setting, you can use our materials. They are available online. We can talk about that as well. Or you could use your own creation. So this is another example. This one is about machine learning, the trendy topic right now. What is it all about? So here they come in, they play the buttons to start, they see what unsupervised learning is about, they go scrolling through, they do activities, they get a lot of feedback, so it's very, very interactive in a way. So this one is less gamey and more informational because we have all sorts of, like in the range of very gameful to, more just interactive, but this one is very interactive as well. Tips and tricks that, as you can see, the design itself is gameful. This other one is about Heinz. So again, taking you from one world to the other, this is finance. So the idea here is when Warren Buffett purchased Heinz for a very high, what I would consider a lot of money. And the idea is that you consider and you see if that, from a financial standpoint, was a lot of money, not too much money, or the exact or sort of the right amount. This is a very, very, I don't know if we have any finance faculty here, no? This is a very, very tough subject. I admire finance professors very much because it's a very, very tough subject. You either like finance or you basically don't like it very much, to say it in a nice way. So getting the message through of how to do all these things is very, 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 very hard, in my opinion. And that's what we get them through here. The idea is that they see some videos, they get engaged with the whole thing. We see some news about Warren Buffett thinking of purchasing Heinz, and it's a very high-end and very known brand. Everybody knows what ketchup and Heinz is in general about. And then we start getting them into the Excels that our finance professors enjoy very much. And they have to do all of these very complicated calculations and so on, but they actually get an option. This is a small show of it. Here it says, do you want to show some help? That actually tells you what are the formulas that you have to consider for these kinds of things. So we sort of divide it into two paths. We could almost call it personalized learning, because there's people who actually study in the business school and they come from the finance world. And they know all these things, or most of these things they already know, and they can go very fast and they can go a lot deeper. Those people probably want to have almost an empty Excel and do the whole calculations by themselves to practice, to get better, because they're probably going to be still in the finance world in the future and they want to increase their capacities by studying an MBA. So those kind of people can say, you want help? I don't want any help. I want an empty Excel. I just want to know if my answers are correct or not correct. The other people probably get half the screen like this. As you can see, the gray ones are the ones that they have to fill in. So not everything they have to fill in. And then the rest of the screen that is not seen here, they get actually the help for them to be able to do all those calculations, because we want them to be able to do these things. So again, I had very little time left, I think. Do we have time for questions after that, or that includes the questions?
That includes the questions.
Includes the questions. So we have 5 minutes left. First of all, thank you very much for bearing with me for almost 40 minutes by now. So thank you very much. If you want to stay up to date, I'm again leaving you this page if you want to subscribe. I'm constantly sending email. Well, constantly. I'm not a spammer. But I do send emails of the things that we're doing, maybe courses, maybe offerings. I let people know that I would be here. Engagers, as I like to call the audience. I let them know that I would be here. I love to connect with people as often and as much as we can. Offer as much, all the content of the podcast is entirely free, so you just get inspiration, ideas, frameworks, and so on from all these famous and not so famous people. Some of them are at this conference, actually. There's several of the speakers at the conference which are interviewed here. And if you have any questions, get them there. And now I think we could save 5 minutes for that Q&A. Do you have any further? Yes, Andy.
So one thing I got out of the first game was the oil pricing game, was that some of the engaging elements were students making quick decisions, getting quick feedback, and there was a competitive element.
Yes.
Do you have any other generalizable tools that you use or things that you try to build into the game for engagement? Any given game?
Yeah. The first thing, you mentioned one which is super important, and it's very generalizable. Immediate or as immediate feedback as you can. We live in a world today where you do something with your mobile and it tells you whatever you did it right, you did it wrong, this is what happens, whatever it is, that's the world we live in. And that's the world our students are used to. So considering that within whatever it is that we're creating, again, it can be a board game, is very, very important to consider. The other thing, you mentioned competition. Competition is something that could work, especially in short-term things. But one of the things that we've been talking about a lot in the gamification world is the importance of considering if the leaderboard, for example, is the right solution that you're looking for. Sometimes, imagine you're in the top. You're very engaged. You want to stay in the top. You're second, third, or fourth. You're trying to get to the top, and it's if you're competitive, some people are not. That's important to consider as well. Even if you're competitive, you're there. What happens if you're 250 and you're like 7,000 points away from the top position? Is that engaging for you? Do you really think that you have a chance of getting there? Depends on how you design it, but in general, leaderboards can be very engaging depending on the situation, or very disengaging. So my advice, and that's where I was going towards, is to think about each situation individually. We're talking about serious games, or we're talking about gamification. This is, in my opinion, this is a design way of seeing things. You have to understand who your audience is, exactly what it is that you want to achieve, what's your objective, where do you want to get them to. And there is when you make up your mind of exactly what you're going to use. You can use game elements, you can use game strategies. There's many things. There's a huge list. Andrzej Marchewski, he is Dave Rage on Twitter. He has a list of like 52 game elements. And there's classified by the different types of users or players that he has. Those are 52, but there's probably 200. One of the things that I'm going to teach in fall is the students how to go in, play a game, and think about how you are going to grab game strategies, game mechanics, game elements to use in something else. It is not exactly Fortnite or chess or whatever it is that you're playing. So that's something that you can be considering. If you want to use serious games in gamification, that's one thing. And the other thing is, of course, play many games. Different, diverse. Some people enjoy more the first-person shooters, so play those first-person shooters and play a strategy game. Play whatever else. There's a huge range. If you only like video games, maybe try a board game, see how that works. See, what's interesting about that, I used to be very much of a console video game player when I was a kid. Now I play board games, computer games. I mean, like anything that comes, sports are games, and we can have a lot of learning from that. Why does having a t-shirt of a certain team get so exciting? How do people get crazy about their own team? That's very, very interesting. And that could be an element, the tribes, the guilds, that we could use and we could incorporate into our lessons for our learners. So, questions over there, Patrick?
I have a question about, actually, it's kind of twofold. What do you find, what's your experience with like the lifespan of some of the things that you created versus like how much time and effort went into making?
The unsatisfactory answer is it depends. For example, if it's a very machine learning, that one that we just saw, machine learning is probably going to live for 4 or 5 years. After machine learning is not a thing, maybe it's going to live more, but what we expect is that one to live maybe 5 years. Making money on oil, that already has 10 years. Actually, we're updating some of the videos because they're talking about, an electric vehicle has just been invented and it has the capacity to travel for 100 miles. It's like, well, there's great solutions in that space already, and it doesn't make much sense in that way. But that's something that we have to consider, and it depends. Some concepts are very long, for the long run. Maybe we updated a little bit of the technology, but the concept itself is still ongoing. Right? Do we have
any more questions? It would
Yeah.
be preferable if you can refer to Mr. Alvarez, his email, and I think that will wrap it up.
Thank you very much.
Engagers, it is fantastic to have you around. I hope you enjoyed this talk I gave at Serious Play, and hopefully in the future you will join me in one of the conferences I'll be attending. So I wanted to mention, I've said it many times, but I really mean it, because this podcast only makes sense with you. So I'd really like to invite you to connect, for example, on Twitter, so you can let me know, again, what are future guests that you like, some different format maybe that you'd like to have, some questions that you have, anything, I can help you with. So you can find my Twitter account in professorgame.com/Twitter. I'm always sharing, content on gamification, especially, of course, in our specialty, which is education and learning. And hey, don't click continue yet. Do you want to know who's next week's guest? Then you'll have to subscribe using your favorite podcast app and listen to the next episode of Professor Game. See you there.